what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Footcandle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Footcandle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello and welcome to Footcandle Films here on themesh.tv. My name is Alan. Across from me is Chris, as always. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Ready to talk about movies.
Yeah, and I apologize in advance. My voice, I think the last time we recorded, my voice was pretty bad too. I'm on the back end of sickness now, so I've kind of gone through the whole bell curve of sickness.
Awesome.
I'm on the tail end of having a pretty rough holiday season, but we're back. We're ready to go to first episode of 2016. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. So welcome, Happy New Year to everybody listening. You know, one thing, Chris, I don't want to spring this on you. Maybe we're going to schedule a special episode, but I realize we haven't really done our best of 2015.
This is true.
So maybe in another few weeks, we might want to schedule something special because I know the audience is clamoring for it.
I'm sure
it's
they
become
are.
the annual tradition.
They've heard everybody else's end of the year list.
That's right.
Haven't got ours yet.
Yeah, everybody's wanting to know. It's on the tip of everybody's tongue as we're out for dinner or drinks. You know, what do Alan and Chris think were the best films of 2015? We have to preserve that tradition.
Actually, I guess we can kind of wrap that with kind of our Oscar predictions because those will kind of fall in
I think that
line
sounds like a
together.
perfect plan. I think that's what we ought to do. Best of 2015 and Oscar predictions here in the next few weeks. Stay tuned. We have teased that episode. It's going to be awesome. But let's talk about today's episode, which is review heavy because we've got a lot of films to talk about.
End of the year.
End of the year. That's right. We got a lot of catching up to do. We're going to talk about the latest Quentin Tarantino film, The Hateful Eight. We'll be talking about a film that very small independent film with an interesting production story called Tangerine. And then Chris and I will both kind of ping pong a couple really quick reviews about the film's Sisters and the film Creed, which each of us have seen respectively solo. So we're going to kind of inform the other person, hey, should you go see this movie or not? As well as informing you, the audience. We'll hit a couple movie news items, and then we're going to finish up the show with our traditional pick of the episode, something that we feel like you ought to go and revisit or see. Maybe you missed, maybe you didn't know existed, or maybe you just haven't seen in a while. So that's our show, a lot to cover. Why don't we get right into it, Chris?
Let's do it.
With our first review, the latest, the eighth film by Mr. Quentin Tarantino, The Hateful Eight.
This here is Daisy Domergue. She's wanted dead or alive for murder. When that sun comes out, I'm taking this woman to hang. Is there anybody here committed to stopping me from doing that?
Well, well, well. Looks like Minnie's haberdashery is about to get cozy for the next few days.
Yes, it does.
All right, Chris, I kind of cheated with this movie and you a little bit.
Sure.
We always try to go into these reviews, if it's you and I have seen the film, and I really don't want to know your thoughts on the film until we sit down at this table and I set up the film and we talk about it, and then I'm surprised. Oh, hey, Chris liked it, or oh, Chris hated it, or oh, Chris and I are on the same page or not. This one, I couldn't resist. I saw you at office staff meeting early this week.
Right.
We had both seen it the previous week, and I couldn't wait 5 extra days. So I said, Chris, tell me, what did you think? So I know where you are on this film. And I feel bad about that because I like the surprise at the end of the recording, but so be it. I know you and I are on the same page with this film. So let me set up the film, and then I want you to tell me where we are because your film, your sentiments are pretty much going to echo mine.
Okay.
This is supposedly the 8th film by Mr. Quentin Tarantino, although if I do the math, there's really been 9. I think he's counting Kill Bill Parts 1 and 2 as one film.
One film.
Which
Fair enough.
Sounds like a very Tarantino thing to do.
Sure.
But The Hateful Eight, we have a very large cast of people that have been, many of them, featured in Tarantino's films in the past. Samuel L. Jackson. Kurt Russell is new to... Oh, no, he was in Death Proof.
He was in Death Proof.
Jennifer Jason Leigh is new to the Tarantino family at this point. Walter Goggins, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, both from Reservoir Dogs days and Pulp Fiction. Bruce Dern, who I think is new to Tarantino's world. And Zoe Bell, who actually plays a small part. She's also from Death Proof, and I think she's been in a couple other films. So he likes to borrow from a lot of the same family. Mm-hmm. But the whole premise of this film is in the dead of a Wyoming winter, a bounty hunter and his prisoner find shelter in a cabin currently inhabited by a collection of nefarious characters. This film has been pitched a little bit as a whodunit mystery, almost like an Agatha Christie film, where you've got a whole cast of characters in a building and somebody's the bad guy and you don't know who. You mix that with, of course, it being a Western genre. You get that mixed in with the fact that Tarantino went all out and did this whole 70 millimeter shooting of this for big panoramic views of everything. And then, of course, you take the Tarantino dialogue and penchant for violence. Mix it all together. Chris, tell the audience how you and I equally feel about this film.
I feel like the movie that all the other critics have seen, that we see ratings for, you hear talked about on other podcasts, and I feel like they've seen a different movie. I mean, this thing has a 8.1 like rating like on the IMDb, and then it has like a 78% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't get it. I don't get it. The genre listed on IMDb, thank God for IMDb. It just helps us out so much pulling stuff together. But it says comedy, drama, mystery. If it was any one of those things and done well, I'd have a totally different view of this movie. It is 187 minutes. 120 of that, to me, were boring. If Quentin Tarantino bores me, something's wrong. Something is wrong. If anything, you can say he's offensive. He's too violent. He's vulgar. He throws around the N-word too much. All these complaints that you always hear about Quentin Tarantino. I have never heard anyone say his films are boring. Now, I don't say this entire film is boring.
Right.
But the whole first half, at least, maybe not 120, but the first 90 minutes at least, hour and a half, it is shot beautifully. Mm-hmm. I mean, 70 millimeter, unfortunately, I did not make it to a theater that was screening it that way, but I could still tell it looked beautiful. So I got the film experience. Would it have been even heightened? Maybe that's the thing. Maybe if you go into a screening that's 70 millimeter, somehow that colors your appreciation of the film and you just kind of drink the magical film cinematic Kool-Aid and you have a different experience. Well, that being said, I didn't have that experience. I like Kurt Russell. I liked him in Death Proof. I like him, in general. Seems like a fun guy. Other movies he's been in.
Hey, it's a fun guy.
His acting in the first maybe 45 minutes of this film, I thought was kind of off. And I didn't know if he didn't get that he was supposed to be playing it more hammy, comedic, or like in Death Proof, he plays a certain type of role and he just plays it straight and it works. In this, it was almost like he was trying too hard to ham it up, or he didn't know what he was supposed to be doing. Yeah. Not through his fault, but maybe through some direction or script. It just wasn't kind of clear. And so I was like, whoa, Kurt Russell, what's going on here, buddy? And but then that did kind of smooth out, and later it was okay. But that kind of set the tone for me. Talk a little bit about your experience.
I was disappointed in the film as well. Now, in hearing your spiel there, I might be a slight bit less negative than you, where I did find some things I could appreciate in the film. But overall, the film did not work for me. I didn't find it as much boring.
Oh, man.
As the problem for me was just the story. And I guess the dialogue that accompanied the story. Here's what I saw with this film. I love the premise. The concept is awesome.
The concept, Quentin Tarantino doing an Agatha Christie type, people locked in a room. That sounds
in this
genius.
snowbound setting. Yeah. It's great.
Sounds like a great idea.
I didn't mind the acting. I thought Kurt Russell was fine. I thought Jennifer Jason Leigh was really good. I thought Sam Jackson was really good. I thought Bruce Dern was pretty good. I mean, I thought everybody was good.
Yeah.
So the premise is good. The characters I thought were interesting characters. I thought the acting was fine. I thought it looked beautiful. I loved the music. I did think the music was really, really good. The score behind it.
Right. Done by Morricone, who done other things.
It was awesome. I mean, I really want to hear that score again. My whole issue with it is that it's almost like you got this great premise. You stretch it out for 3 hours, which it didn't need to be stretched out for 3 hours. I love this idea of getting to know each of the characters. But at the end of the day, and again, we're not going to spoil the ending or kind of how it ends up, but it was kind of just a big fizzle out when it came to like this big built up tension ending that we're expecting.
Yeah, I agree.
And and I'm trying to figure out how to say this without spoiling anything. When you set up a mystery and you're telling the audience that these many people are the people and one of them is not who they say they are, and then you kind of cheat by introducing another character that no one was even knew was there, it ruined it for me. It actually kind of deflated the whole thing. I'm like, oh, so that's how we're going to end this thing. It's like, okay, you build up some tension. You're trying, Quentin, to build up tension this whole first 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Mm-hmm. And you get us built up like, okay, you're trying to like really get us excited to think, who is it? Who's not telling the truth? Because Kurt Russell's character keeps saying somebody in here isn't who they say they are.
Right.
That sets up the premise. All right, something's going to go down. Something's going to happen. And then when you finally find out what actually is going on, it's like, well, okay, yeah, I kind of figured that was it. And then you threw this whole other random character at me that it's kind of a cheat, I think. It's like, okay, well, then the whole rest of the movie was just kind of a letdown for me. It's like, all right, well, I know now what the deal is. I know what's happening. It was just, I thought it was just not, it was a great premise, but a really poorly told story. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have any real sense of Quentin Tarantino's excellent dialogue scenes. There was one, Samuel L. Jackson's delivering to Bruce Dern.
Okay.
That I thought was probably the best dialogue-driven scene in the movie. And it was pretty good. It wasn't as good as Inglourious Basterds or Django
Right.
Unchained or Pulp Fiction or any other film I could list out of his repertoire, but it was okay. But all the rest of the dialogue just didn't go anywhere. It's like, give us a couple great lines, give us some good timing of those lines, and that's it. And it just didn't lead to anything.
I'm on the same page. I will say that the Quentin Tarantino dialogue instances, the one you mentioned is kind of a standout. And earlier in the film, in that first half that I wasn't really crazy about, but there is a scene in a stagecoach between Samuel Jackson and Walton Goggins where they're kind of going back and forth. And Kurt Russell throws in a little bit. And that had a little bit of the Tarantino crackle that I was expecting was good.
2 or 3 good conversations can't carry a 3-hour film.
No, it can't.
Right.
No, it can't.
I don't feel myself was bored. I kept waiting for this build that I'm used to with his films. And sometimes some of his films, they start out a little slow and they kind of end. Death Proof especially. I thought Death Proof was so slow until it just got to this big explosive ending in the last 15 minutes. I kind of felt the same way about this, but the ending here was just not really that interesting to me.
Yeah.
You know? So I guess that's my whole thing, is that you have a great premise, but there was just nothing that really interested me about this 3-hour film. I didn't really find a huge investment in a lot of the characters because I didn't feel like we really got to dig into them enough, which is kind of crazy to think. 8 people over 3 hours, you would think we'd have a pretty good understanding of everybody.
Yeah, you would.
So yeah, I was disappointed. I'm not going to say I hate the Hateful Eight, and it's still not my least favorite Quentin Tarantino film. Death Proof is still my least favorite film.
I think it definitely is. I mean, granted, I should probably see it again. Maybe the time will be when I can watch it at home and I can fast forward through scenes of just snow falling or scenes of people sitting around in a cabin. But it is my least favorite.
Yeah, it's my second least favorite of his. Death Proof is still my least favorite. And Death Proof is probably one I really should revisit because I feel like I didn't give it a fair shake. But it's definitely in the bottom couple of his films.
Well, in fairness, to the film, maybe my expectations were too high. I mean, there had been a lot of buzz about how the script was leaked and then he was going to not make the movie because he was so mad about it. And then he decided after a script reading held out in California, he's like, you know what? This went so well. There was really positive feedback from the actors. I'm going to go ahead and make the movie anyway. And then he got the score done by Morricone, like the Westerns type score. And he got all the big names attached to the script and filmed in 70 millimeter. It was like all this event. And then, Much Ado About Nothing. It just, to me, just really fell flat. And granted, I think Inglourious Basterds probably sits at the top for me.
Oh,
That's probably my favorite
Absolutely.
film of his. And, he's got other good pieces, but I was so surprised. To me, this was kind of like his George Lucas moment. He got to do whatever he wanted to do. He was given the keys to the kingdom. Now, he's had kind of free reign before. He got to make Kill Bill and split it up into 2 movies. But this has been the first instance where his instincts didn't match with me as a filmgoer what I wanted to see.
Interesting. That's
and
a good way of looking at
the
it.
length and it just seemed overly indulgent and not in a way that worked for me. Was Kill Bill indulgent? Absolutely. Was Inglourious Basterds indulgent? Yeah, but it somehow worked, and this just really fell flat.
You know, the interesting thing is you and I are in the minority on this. There's a lot of critics, calling this the best film of the year.
And I would love to hear why.
And I still haven't gotten quite a clear answer myself. I've tried to read the reviews after I saw it myself. I'm like, I'm not connecting with these reviews at all. Again, your opinion's a little bit lower than mine, but mine is still pretty much a disappointment. And definitely far, far from one of my favorite Tarantino works. It's definitely in the bottom couple for me right now.
I'd go so far as to say, through the history of this show, very rarely have we reviewed a movie when I wouldn't recommend seeing it. Mm-hmm. This is one that I wouldn't recommend to somebody seeing, unless they are a diehard Quentin Tarantino film or fan. Then I'd say, see it just so you can be a completist. But in general, I think it's kind of, there's nothing special about it, and I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, all right, well. That's the Hateful Eight. Surprise, surprise.
Hating on the Hateful Eight.
Hating on the Hateful Eight. A surprise. We reviewed a Quentin Tarantino film, and we both walked away unhappy and disappointed. So that's probably a first, and hopefully it will not happen again, but we'll see. Everybody's entitled to a little misfire here and there.
Sure.
And, it could be just the way we're seeing this one. So that's the Hateful Eight. Now let's move on to our second review, which is a film that probably many of you have not heard of. But it is available on Netflix now, but it made some rounds in the film festival circuit. It's gotten a little bit of buzz and some play with some celebrity endorsements we'll talk about in a moment. But the film is Tangerine.
Hey, Alexandra, come here. Listen, have you seen Cindy?
Cinderella. Looks like someone has a crush.
Cindy's back on the block?
Oh, yeah, she's back. She's back and she's going hard.
Merry Christmas, bitch. Woo! I got some good news to tell you about me and Chester.
I know what it is. You're breaking up with him. Thank God. Him to be cheating on you like that.
Wait, what?
You didn't know?
In balance of our Hateful Eight review, we're going to, as Alan teased, we're going to review Tangerine, which is a much more independent film, smaller budget film.
Much shorter, too.
And
half the length
and it's
of
shorter.
the Hateful Eight.
Right. Like an hour and a half.
Yep.
And a nice nugget-sized movie there. Tangerine tells the story of two transgender prostitutes working the streets of Hollywood, California, and on Christmas Eve, searching for somebody who's done one of the people wrong, one of the ladies wrong. It was shot on an iPhone 5S, supposedly, on probably multiple iPhone 5Ss. So, Alan, this director, Sean Baker, obviously chose this aesthetic. This is an independent film in all meanings of the word. We've discussed other independent films. The one that comes to my mind that Alan really hated, and other critics this year liked, talking about being contrarian, was Buzzard.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not discussing Buzzard. You can look back to a past episode if you want to hear about that. But this independent film, you risk... That storyline just sounds like, okay, a bunch of people walking around, maybe the shock value of them being transgender prostitutes. Maybe sounds like it's just kind of a gimmicky, and shot on iPhone 5Ss, could be kind of a gimmicky approach to making an independent film. How did this movie work for you, Alan?
The movie worked fine. I enjoyed it. It didn't blow me away. I mean, it was not, I don't quite get the buzz where some critics are calling it best of the year type of thing. I'm not really seeing that high a praise for it. But I appreciated it. I enjoyed it. I had a pretty good time with the film. I was interested to see it because I love the idea of a film being shot on an iPhone. But after the first couple minutes and I'm watching the shots, I forget about all that.
Sure.
I'm really just kind of watching because I am interested in the two main characters. Okay, I do enjoy following them. I do enjoy walking in their shoes a little bit, to say. And that's what this film really does.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's all about what they see, how they interact with people on the street, the situations they're going through. I liked it. I thought it was a fine film. To me, everybody's getting a lot of attention for the two lead actresses, which, Caitlyn Jenner, formerly Bruce Jenner, has kind of been a very public advocate for, I think, Maya Taylor, actually trying to get some award recognition for her performance. And the thing is, I thought for two people that don't act normally, from what I understand, I thought they were fine. I thought they were fun to watch. Oh, are they best performances of the year I've seen in any film? Absolutely not. But overall, the film was an interesting experiment. It did give me some good insight into a world and culture that I'll self-admittedly say, not very aware of or not very, knowledgeable about.
Sure.
And it did a great job with that. The film really put you in a great sense of mind of knowing what's going on with these characters. I thought it was inventive. I thought it was creative. There's a lot of walking and talking shots and, a lot of movement shots. And again, I kept reminding myself every once in a while, you remember, this is shot on an iPhone. It looks really good, and it's done really well.
Sure.
So overall, from an independent film standpoint, I think it's a really good example of what strong independent film could be. I didn't love it. I thought it was fine. I thought at the end it was very inconsequential. It was kind of how I felt walking away from it. It's like, okay. It was a fine little excursion for 90 minutes. But I had a good time with it, and I do think it's worth checking out to see a good independent film on a very, very low budget done really well. What do you think?
I think I liked it a little more than you.
Really?
Do I think it's like number one film of the year? No. One thing that struck me outside of the whole, the fact that it was shot on iPhones, like we've already mentioned, I thought that was pretty impressive, and I did fall away in that it wasn't concentrating on that the whole movie, which, that being said, it's pretty amazing they were able to do that.
Yeah, I was impressed with the fact that they took a technical premise like that, but they didn't beat you over the head with it.
No.
I mean, it was just no point did I ever catch myself saying, oh, yeah, now I remember they're doing an iPhone shoot.
And I think, too, what struck me was I thought, the casting of this was done really well. Whether... I don't know the story behind the script and how everything was come together, but, the actors or actresses really took control of the script and really made it theirs, and it was believable. I didn't recognize anybody in the film.
Oh, wow.
So for that to be the case and for them to carry it off is just very solid, very, very solid performances, very believable. Like you said, I'm not really familiar with, prostitutes in LA and all that kind of like
the culture scene,
kind of the gritty underside, but it made you sympathetic with these characters. That's basically like, this is their job.
Sure.
This is what they do. This is how they try to make a living, try to get by, and don't really do that well. One of them has just gotten out of prison, and they're kind of, it's tough. And it also shows a side of, so you have that aspect. Then you have, there's a gentleman that interacts with him at some points who's a taxi driver.
Razmik.
And he's an immigrant, and he has his family situation. He's a married man, has a child, and it kind of humanizes what is, kind of uncomfortable subject matter, but it kind of humanizes it and makes you realize, like, these are real people, and they're not just done for, the transgender prostitutes, not just done for shock value. It's done to kind of make it very realistic and down to earth. And I think it worked. And one other aspect that I mentioned it was the fact that this all kind of takes place within, I guess, Christmas Eve. So it kind of starts in the evening, kind of bleeds over to the night. And it's a very original take on like a Christmas movie. Not one you would show to your family, but it's kind of an interesting, this is going on. It's on Christmas Eve. They try to celebrate Christmas. They try to have, they go to a karaoke type performance thing of like singing on Christmas Eve. And it's for one of the characters, it's kind of hoping to be this kind of special moment for them. And, it's an interesting realism take on a Christmas movie.
Sure.
That's kind of your, obviously very independent film, but I appreciate that. And at the end, you referenced kind of how it feels kind of throwaway. And I kind of, in a way, that helped ground the movie in that they're not really trying to make you think about, these really big points they were trying to get across. It was just kind of a slice of life type movie.
See, and that's what I really appreciated about the film is that, you take this premise and it's two true transgender people playing the two lead roles.
Right.
And they're playing transgender prostitutes in the movie.
Right.
But that never beats you over the head with that. I mean, it's like there's one scene. And it's actually my favorite scene of the film because I think it's just really interesting what they did. One scene where it really calls attention to the fact that they're transgender, but it does it in a way that I think is really impressive. It's where the taxi driver, Razmik, played by Karen Karagulian, he picks up someone, a prostitute. We find out that he has a penchant for picking up prostitutes, and he knows a lot of the prostitutes in the area.
Kind of the the route that he drives in the city is often
that's kind
in
of
and
what
around.
the business
Sure.
is in that area.
Sure.
And as he is starting to engage with this prostitute, it comes to realize that the prostitute is not transgender, that it's a true female, birth female. And he's bothered by it. He's offended by it because this part of town, you can't be that. That's kind of his expression to her. And at that point, it made me kind of realize, I was like, all right, so this is an interesting little twist. Here's a guy, we're following around. He's kind of invested in this culture here. That's where he is. That's what he appreciates, what he enjoys. And he's actually kind of offended that someone's out on the street who is not transgender now. Right. I thought that scene was just really impressive. And it's the only time it really shines a spotlight on the fact that they are transgender characters.
True.
Otherwise, you're following them as two human beings having a really kind of rough night, having to deal with a lot of different characters. And I did appreciate the film quite a bit. I did enjoy it. I appreciated it. I think it may be a little overrated in some of the reviews, critic circles I've been hearing, but that's just my take on it. I think there's a lot of other many, many better films out there right now. But this is a really, really well done independent film.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you have any issues? Anything? Any problems?
No. I mean, overall, I thought it was a good film, but it is definitely one that is pretty graphic.
Sure. Yeah.
So definitely not one for the kids, but I think it's a good example of an independent film.
I agree.
It's not a great film. But
I don't even know what the budget was on this, but it can't have been much. At all. There's no way there could be a huge budget for this. I'm looking right now, trying to see. I don't even see a budget listed, so there's no way it could be more than, $20,000, $30,000. I don't see how.
Right.
So,
I would be interested to see what Sean Baker does next, because he's a talented filmmaker. He can make a really well constructed film. So what's he going to do next? Mm-hmm. So this isn't his first film, but his first one that I think has really gotten a lot of acclaim.
Sure. So that's Tangerine. It is actually on Netflix as we record this, which is how I saw it. And I recommend everybody, if you appreciate independent film, this is a great film example to check out. And just a really interesting take on some interesting side of culture that not many of us are as exposed to. All right. Well, what we'll do, Chris, is let's go on to our quicker reviews.
Okay.
Where you and I have both seen a film each that the other one has not seen, but we figured while we're recording together, let's go ahead and get some opinions out on the table about these two films. And so, I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll talk about the film Sisters. This is the film starring Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. The director is Jason Moore, but Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, I'm pretty sure had a hand in writing to some degree, although Paula Pell, who is a former Saturday Night Live writer, and she's written a lot of other comedy work. I think she's worked with Tina Fey on 30 Rock quite a bit.
Okay.
Pretty well-known writer in the comedy world.
Okay.
Wrote the screenplay for this film. So the premise here is we have two sisters. One's the stereotypical kind of buttoned up, walk the line type of girl who does a lot of public service work and charity work and humanities work, and played by Amy Poehler. And then you've got the wild child who just doesn't have her life together. Okay. She and her daughter kind of keep having to move around because they don't have a solid place to live or career, played by Tina Fey. Their parents tell them that they're getting ready to sell their home, their old household that they grew up in.
Okay.
They need to go to the house and clean out all their stuff before the new people move in. They get down there and decide they want to throw one big last party because they're a little miffed that the house is getting sold. And they feel like they want to relive a few memories before it all goes away. So they have a big, huge house party with all their old friends from high school in the area coming together.
Okay.
I will say this about the film. This is one of those films where it's either funny or it's not. Okay. You go to a comedy that's driven by lead comedy actors, written by a comedy writer, that's meant to be a pure comedy, very little much else beyond that. It's either funny or it's not funny.
Okay.
This movie
Fair enough.
is funny.
Ranks in the funny
I did have
side.
a really fun time watching the film. And I'll tell you why I think I enjoyed it so much. I always enjoy Amy Poehler and Tina Fey in general. I think they're both very talented and they're a lot of fun to watch. Switching their roles a little bit, Tina Fey being the wild child, which is a little against her normal type. Amy Poehler being the very straight-laced one. Again, they got to play with their roles a little bit, which was fun.
Okay.
But what was fun about this film for me, it didn't really kick in until they actually had the party. And the party is so much fun to watch because it's these other characters that they grew up with. So they're all in their 40s now.
Yeah, okay.
coming together to have a party. And the party just does not go well at first because it's a bunch of 40-year-olds all sitting around talking. They're talking about their kids. They're worried about having to go home and relieve the babysitter. I mean, it was not a fun party. And then certain elements get introduced into the party that all of a sudden turn it outrageous. And just watching how out of control it gets over the last hour of the film was really fun to watch.
So the last hour of the film is like the party.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The party is the majority of the film.
Okay.
And it's really fun. I mean, there's not much else to it. It's not a deep movie. They're not going for any special messages here.
Okay.
It is truly just two sisters who have walked different paths, decided to come together and throw a big party, and how much fun they have with the party and some of the complications that arise because of said party.
Okay.
Just to call out a few things, Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, of course, very funny. Maya Rudolph is in it, very funny. James Brolin and Diane Weiss play their parents, and they're really funny. They're really good in it. John Leguizamo is in it.
Okay.
Does fine. Bobby Monahan, who is a guy on Saturday Night Live. You probably have seen him.
I have.
He's not a big movie star, but he's on Saturday Night Live quite a bit.
Sure.
He has a small part in this film, but he's throughout the party, and he is hilarious. Rachel Dratch, Samantha Bee, a lot of familiar faces in the comedy world, all are members of this party. But the one I've got to call out, John Cena, the pro wrestler.
No, was he
former
also
actor
in
as well.
Trainwreck?
He might have been. I never saw Trainwreck.
Really?
Yeah, it's still on my list to see.
Wow.
Yeah. But John Cena plays a drug dealer.
I'm going to say it is him.
Okay. His part in this was absolutely hysterical. So he's not in the movie much, but every moment
when he is,
counts. Every moment counts that he's in that movie. So it's a fun movie. It's vulgar. It's over the top, but it's a lot of fun. So I did have a good time with it. Another one not for the kiddies, but
right.
a very fun movie. So.
Okay, thanks to the wonder that is the internet. I did a quick search, and yes, John Cena is also in Trainwreck.
Okay, so he's becoming quite the comedic performer here. So.
And he doesn't have a huge part in Trainwreck, but he does have a very funny cameo.
Same kind of idea here. He's in maybe 3 or 4 scenes and doesn't have much dialogue in any of the scenes. Well, there's one scene. Yeah, I'll leave it. It's funny. It's very good. So the sisters. I mean, it's not a perfect comedy,
sure,
but it made me laugh enough to say, yeah, if you're looking to go see a very raunchy, funny comedy, go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fair enough.
So you reviewed you saw the film Creed.
Of the two of us, at the beginning of the year, if we had thrown out there, okay, they're remaking the Rocky. We had talked about it in a news item that they were remaking, or they were going to do something with the Rocky franchise, and that Ryan Coogler, the guy who did Fruitvale Station, was going to be the director, and that he was bringing back his star, Michael B. Jordan, to be in the movie. It sounded vaguely interesting, but still, I would have kind of lobbed this over to you and let you kind of run with it, because I think you're more of a fan of the whole Rocky.
Yeah, I mean, sports movies in general, sure, I like.
You're more of a fan of that. So I had no intention of seeing this movie whatsoever.
Okay. All right.
But Rotten Tomatoes. There again, blame Rotten Tomatoes. It was really high on Rotten Tomatoes. It got a really high score on IMDb. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. I did like Fruitvale Station. I was kind of a fan of that movie. And, despite what Fantastic Four was this year, and I do not blame that on Michael B. Jordan, but he was in the film. Despite that, I was like, let's see what he can do with Creed. And, I have to say, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
If you like the Rocky movies at all, you should definitely go see this, because it is a worthwhile, member of that set of films. If you like sports movies, also go see this movie.
Okay.
It's, and it doesn't always fall into all the typical, I guess, traps that could lay out for, they don't overdo the heartstrings. There are some sentimental moments, but Adonis, who is the son of Apollo Creed, and he is the Creed of the title. He's basically the unknown son of Apollo Creed. Apollo Creed passed away. He had an affair. You find that out in the opening part of the film, and this is his son that was a result of that. So he's always kind of had boxing in his blood, but has always been very kind of polarized against it because it was the father that he didn't know. Sounds terrible, kind of like a movie of the week type idea. But it actually works, and amazingly enough, there again, if you thought, like, if you would have asked me, could Sylvester Stallone do a good job in a Rocky movie again, I would have said no. But, and you've probably heard the critical buzz, he actually does a really good job. It's very understated, kind of a melancholic performance, but he does a really good job. And there's strong performances in the film. There's the girl who plays the girlfriend of the Adonis character, Tessa Thompson. She was also in Dear White People, which was really good, and she was the lead in that movie as well. Okay. She's in this movie, and an example of something this movie does that I found, I was surprised for such a, obviously it's a franchise type movie. It's a Rocky movie. I don't expect something as a strong female girlfriend. And then add on to that, she happens to be hearing impaired, or she's hearing impaired technically, and she is going to lose her hearing. She knows that. She states that when the first time it's like, yeah, I'm have hearing loss and I'll be deaf at some point.
Wow.
And that's not used, like, that's not a huge plot point in the movie.
Sure.
Like, oh, okay, later in the movie, that's somehow going to really come into play. No, it's just kind of mentioned, and it makes the movie seem more grounded and real. And, Rocky Balboa's character is played as being very grounded and real. He is a lot older. He has lost his wife. He basically just kind of runs the restaurant, Adrian's, and just kind of, doesn't really go to the gym anymore because he doesn't want to associate with the whole Rocky Balboa Italian style. Not that he's ashamed of it. He's just kind of like, you know what? That was then. This is now. I'm just kind of older, kind of living out the rest of my life.
Wow.
And it was just a very real, grounded performance. And, for the boxing fans or sports fans, the sequences in the ring are really well shot and are good. So it's a good movie. So I would recommend it.
Chris give a thumbs up on a Rocky spinoff movie.
Strange.
Sports movie means I have to go see this movie now. So,
you should. You should. And
it's been on my list, and unfortunately, it's not playing here locally anymore.
If you had said, is Chris going to like the new Tarantino movie or a Rocky franchise movie?
Yeah.
Which one? And that's what blows my mind is I like the Rocky franchise movie much better than Hateful Eight.
Wow.
So
2016 is a weird year already, huh?
It's been kind of crazy. And sadly, very sadly, upon exiting the theater, I'm like, that was great. But I am hit with this big sense of sadness because I know Hollywood is not going to let this alone. Because the movie was good, but what's going to ruin it is any type of sequel built upon this movie. Just revisiting it after all these years and everything, and kind of taking an interesting slant where it's actually Rocky is not the spotlight of the movie, it's this other guy. But what's going to ruin it is they're going to make a Creed 2. And apparently he's already been on talk shows, talked about how he learned a lot of boxing to be in the movie. Michael B. Jordan did. And now he's all excited. He's like, oh, no, I still box and still do it every day. And it's like, yeah, you're still in training because they're going to make a sequel. Because the movie did make good money.
It did pretty good.
Did get some good critical buzz.
It did.
So sadly, I think it's going to be ruined by a sequel.
Well, possibly so. But we'll enjoy it for the standalone single film that it is right now. So... Well, good. So 2 good thumbs up from us on Sisters and Creed. Both, well, I think Creed is kind of fizzing out at the box office now.
It's nearing the end of its
so
theatrical
Sisters
run.
may have another week or 2 left on it if you're catching the show here in time. So let's take a quick little break. When we come back, we're going to do a couple news items, and then we'll end up the show with our recommended picks of the episode. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
When you need a dose of entertainment chatter or just a good laugh, be sure to check out Chick Chat on the Mesh. It's girls talking about stuff, well, girls want to talk about. Celebrities, gossip, fads, boys. It's kind of the guilty pleasure of the Mesh Network. Here's a little taste of what you can expect. But you know what I always thought was really exciting? Is at the beginning of a new season, when the montage would change and the people were like older or they had something new.
Like when you got new Becky on Roseanne.
Yes. That's an example.
Perfect example. You need to know. You can't just start shows and then new people are on there and you're thinking, what I needed the montage.
What about on 90210? Okay, that 90210, it changed every season,
It did.
And then they had the beach summer one where
they worked at the country club?
Yes. And the opening credits had them like wearing bikinis and stuff. And then another one would be like when they're just in that white room and on chairs that swivel around.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's all...
Even Baywatch, when they changed lifeguards.
Absolutely.
They had new people running down the beach in red bikinis, but you knew they're a new lifeguard. I need to get invested in that.
So come have a listen to Chick Chat on themesh.tv. You know you want to.
Welcome back to Footcandle Films here on themesh.tv. Just a reminder, themesh.tv is a podcast network that we have a variety of original shows that you can download, listen to. Some of them you can even watch on video. And we encourage you to go visit our website at themesh.tv. That's where you can find out all of these shows that are on the Mesh Network. Go back in time and listen to any old episode you'd like to for any of those shows as well. All the episodes of Footcandle Films are up there, so please go up and give that a listen as well. You can go back and listen to old reviews. My favorite thing to do with any other film review podcast, Chris, is, sometimes I hear an episode comes out and they're reviewing a film and I haven't seen that film yet, so I will not listen to the review. It may be a couple months later I finally get to see it. I'll go download the old episode where they reviewed that movie after I see the film and just kind of see how my opinions match up. So I encourage everybody, that's a good way to do it too. If you hear us talking about The Hateful Eight, for example, but you haven't seen it yet, go back and listen to it later. Download it a few weeks later after you've had a chance to catch up on it. Hopefully you didn't spend more than like a buck or two on it for our matinee showing. But, at least you get to hear the review on your own time. That's what's great about the podcast network in general. So, Chris, my voice, I feel like, is starting to slightly wear out. So let's go ahead and hit into our news items and recommendations.
Okay.
So maybe I can be done with the voice about the time we end out the episode.
Okay.
We got about 2 or 3 news items. Let me kick it off with the first one I've got here.
Sure.
We haven't talked about superheroes in this episode so far.
Not
and
yet.
I know you have expressed a little bit of the burnout factor on some superhero films as well. So I'm not going to talk about any of the big ones.
Okay.
I do want to tell you about one that I actually think you might be interested in seeing.
Really?
Yep. The film is Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Have you heard anything about this?
I know.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
I know the Batch.
The Batch is playing. And I only say maybe Chris might enjoy this one because it seems like it's going to be a little different. This film is, Doctor Strange in the comics is a very mystical character. He does more of his battles and fighting in like this mystical plane, and it's like kind of just very trippy type of stuff going on.
Sure.
And supposedly that's where the film is going to. It's going to be a very trippy, very visually exhilarating film.
Right off the bat, I think possibly a strength. I'm not as versed in the Marvel world as you are. Or is he DC?
He's Marvel.
He's Marvel, okay. So this is a Disney thing. He never has any interactions with the Avengers, correct?
Oh, he's going to have interactions with the Avengers.
See, I was hoping that actually makes me excited. They're doing a new movie about this character, but they have no intention of bringing him into the Avengers universe.
It's probably going to be kind of like an Ant-Man thing where it's like, all right, he's kind of a standalone character, but there's enough connections with the others. I'm sure. They got to tie everybody together.
I was hoping they were just deciding to do a standalone, but maybe not.
Well, the reason I'm interested in Doctor Strange because, I really like Benedict Cumberbatch in general.
Yeah.
So I feel like, when they announced him as playing the part, I'm like, oh yeah, perfect. And they released photos of him in costume. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally him.
Oh, I've read a couple of his comic books when I was a kid, and he definitely, I think, looks the part. So, and his kind of aloofness that he did in the movie, what was the movie with the World War II Imitation Game?
Right. Yeah.
Like, how his character and kind of how he nuanced that character. I think he will do well. But what actually worries me is your description. I'd kind of forgotten about how he often does battles in like these astral planes. That to me just sounds like a CGI nightmare.
Well, it could be. That is a concern of mine. But at least I would rather see a CGI film where the CGI is necessary to create an imaginary world.
Right.
As opposed to trying to make it a real world where everything's CGI around you.
Gotcha.
So I'm okay with it. And also, I'm a little curious, too. They brought in a director, Scott Derrickson. Probably not familiar with him because he's mostly a horror film director.
Uh-huh.
He has made Sinister 2. He wrote those 2 screenplays. Director-wise, he has directed The Exorcism of Emily Rose, Sinister, Deliver Us from Evil. So he's a horror director. So to put a horror director into a kind of mystical, magic-fueled superhero movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, this could be kind of interesting. So I'm looking forward to it.
Is the movie, has it already been finished? Do we have a release date? Or no?
I think it's filming right now.
Okay.
So I think they're saying November of this year.
Oh, so it will come out
end
this
of
year.
this year. Yep.
Be interested to see, I'm assuming, because it's Marvel/Disney, that it would be, even with the director, that they would limit it to like a PG-13 release, that it wouldn't be
Oh, it's going to be. But I wouldn't be upset if they wove in some a little more horror elements into it, light elements, just to give it a little bit of an edge. I think that's where the Marvel films need to be right now, is they need a little more edge to them. Because you're going to have the Civil War Captain America movie coming out in May, I believe.
I think that's right.
And then Doctor Strange is going to be out in November. So that's kind of the two we've got coming up this year. So, all right.
Interesting.
What have you got for us?
So, Christopher Nolan.
I'm familiar with him.
He's kind of somebody we talked about. He is. Yeah, okay. And also a writer. He writes and directs most of the stuff. He's announced his next film. It's entitled Dunkirk. Dunkirk. And it's going to be basically a World War II movie.
Ooh.
And it's going to tell the story of a famous evacuation that happened in 1940 when 330,000 troops had to be like emergency evacuated from the French mainland because like Nazis were about to, attack the area. So they had to get a bunch of people out so there wouldn't be like massive slaughter. Tom Hardy and Kenneth Branagh are supposedly already in talks to play roles in the film, but Nolan has stated that they will not be the leads, that he wants an unknown to be the male lead.
Good.
So that's kind of interesting.
Yep.
Although I really like both of those actors. I can see how they'd be strong supporting characters. There's no word yet on when the filming will start or an expected release, but this is going to be his next big film. So,
interesting.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Are you? Okay.
You are not a big fan of Interstellar.
I was not. I need to revisit it. I've only seen it once, but he is a director who, up until that point, I liked all his films and was a big champion of all his work. Interstellar, not that it was a bad film, I just found it kind of shaggy and loose around the edges, and not as inventive as I would have wanted, and kind of predictable in some ways as well.
I'll tell you, I felt that way about The Dark Knight Rises. That was the film I felt like was just a little off the rails and just kind of lost a little bit of control that I really appreciate with all of his other films. I thought Interstellar got some of it back. I don't think Interstellar was perfect, but it just worked for me. It was one of those films where the whole package just kind of connected with me somehow, and I really appreciated it. Okay. But I really do like Christopher Nolan. I still think The Prestige is one of the best films.
That is.
It's one of my favorites.
One of my favorites that he's done.
Of course, what's the one about Inception?
Yeah,
of course.
I really like
a good
Inception
film
as
too.
well.
And Batman Begins is one of my top 20 favorite films of all time.
Yeah.
So the guy's got a good track record. So
absolutely,
I'm excited, and I love the idea of going into World War II period. That should be a lot of fun too.
Well, and I think, when we reviewed Phoenix, I talked about how, not that I'm done with World War II movies, but it's so hard. That is, to me, seems like the most filmed event in history is World War II. And it's so hard for something for me to kind of be original or seem like an interesting idea. And honestly, if it's centered around we're trying to evacuate tons of people, how do we get out before the Nazis really hit this area? So it's like a big escape type movie.
That sounds exciting.
That to me sounds interesting. Cool. And even though Interstellar I wasn't the biggest fan of, Christopher Nolan, the mere fact that his name is attached to it, I know I want to see it.
Sure. Yeah.
So
good. Awesome. I'm looking forward to that one. So we did a special episode just a couple weeks ago about this latest Star Wars film.
Yes.
Now, we're going to talk about the Star Wars world a bit. Okay. We need to do it without spoiling because, again, there's 20 people out there who have not seen the new Star Wars movie yet.
I thought your news event was just going to be the fact that it surpassed Avatar, which I was very happy about.
Well, it is the number one domestic film of all time.
That's great.
United States film, it's the biggest one. I don't think it's going to beat it internationally.
Oh, come on.
Avatar.
Have hope. Have faith.
I'm watching the China numbers this morning. Seriously, I was, because it opened in China today. And China is the last international market for it to open up in.
Okay.
If China explodes with it, it could reach Avatar numbers. If China doesn't, then it's going to be number 2.
All right, China. Come on.
Come on, China. You can do this. So without spoiling anything with episode 7, we can do this, but I just thought this was interesting. So you and I were both big fans of episode 7.
See, there's one that in general has gotten pretty positive response that you and I are kind of.
Oh yeah, we're on the same page with. We really liked it.
Yeah.
There's a petition online circulating right now, though, where even though you could argue that most people pretty happy with The Force Awakens, there is a petition that has started. I think it's already got over 8,000 or 9,000 signatures.
Wow.
To have George Lucas brought back to direct Episode 9, the final one of the trilogy. Supposedly people
are these people like insane? Is it like gone to an insane asylum and like they just had everybody there sign up?
They are concerned that Colin Trevorrow, who was locked up to do Episode 9, he is the Jurassic World guy.
Right.
He's also the Safety Not Guaranteed guy.
Right.
So he's kind of done films on either end of the spectrum, big blockbuster CGI, and he's done a small independent comedy too. So yeah, they're not happy with Mr. Trevorrow, and they also feel like that George Lucas should be brought back into the Star Wars fold, that he has not been, he's kind of been kicked out unceremoniously, and they feel like he needs to be brought back in. So I don't need to ask your opinion on the matter.
Yeah, I kind of just let it fly there, didn't I?
But I did want to ask an interesting question. I mean, do you feel like, and I'm trying to be devil's advocate on this, with Episode 7, do you feel like there was anything detrimental in the film because George Lucas was not involved in some way, shape, or form? I'm not saying directing, but remember back to Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. George Lucas drove the story. It was his story concept for all three of the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But different people wrote the screenplay and directed the film. This is Episode 7 is the first one where he had nothing to do with it. It wasn't his story, wasn't anything he wrote or anything he directed. Do you feel like Episode 7 in any way was hurt or could have been even better if Mr. Lucas had had some level of involvement like the original trilogy?
Okay, before I answer that, what are these people petitioning for again? Because my answer has a little bit...
They want him to direct Episode 9.
Lord, no. Okay, they're
right.
insane.
Yeah.
They are certifiably insane. Okay, now, I will say this. Some of the negatives that you and I talked about for The Force Awakens were that although it was a good movie, it kind of was echoing elements of the original films, maybe a little too much.
Maybe
like,
a little
do we
much,
really
too much
need
fan
another
service.
Death Star?
Maybe
Do we
a little
really
too much
need
fan
the
service.
hologram being projected? It's like, come on. Like, now, I think George Lucas is a horrible director. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, his original ideas for coming up with this, obviously I owe that to him. You know, he had a lot of good ideas. I think that, and I think his idea for the 6 movies that have already been made, not the 7th that he had nothing to do with, they were there and they were good. And I think, you know, different directors were able to take them and make them better. Now, the prequels that he did, it's a shame that he wouldn't let somebody else direct them.
Yeah.
I think that in a way, but even though they were poorly directed, the ideas behind the prequels, I think were good.
Sure.
Because it was a good origin story. It kind of explains why Anakin goes bad. It was just horribly directed.
Yeah.
And
No,
had
you're
some
right.
horrible dialogue.
I completely agree.
Now, could Episode 7 have benefited from how George Lucas could have seen these next movies going? Sure.
Yeah.
But do I think it was a detriment that he wasn't there? Absolutely not. Yeah. And I will say this too. Colin Trevorrow, I liked Safety Not Guaranteed. Jurassic World, I didn't think was a poorly directed film.
No.
He didn't write Jurassic World.
No.
So, you know, I think it's a, like, I don't...
It was fine. I thought Jurassic Park was okay.
I would love to see a Jurassic Park movie that was innovative, but I just don't think you're going to get that. It's just people want to see dinosaurs smashing stuff. So, you know, he gave the public, he gave the studios what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I think he will make an interesting Episode 9. Yeah. And I think this is a very daring kind of move. I'm not really sure why Disney is doing it. Disney, you know, and the Star Wars people are Lucasfilm, although that's just a name. Why they're doing it, why they're picking a different director for every movie.
Well, to be like the original trilogy.
Well, and maybe that's that's true because Lucas only did the first one.
Yep.
So,
well, here's my thing.
And I'm excited about, we've talked about how I'm excited about Rian Johnson.
Yeah.
I'm excited about Colin Trevorrow for the thing, even though it won't because I think it's...
But here's the thing. By the time we get ready for Episode 9, it's going to be like Return of the Jedi was for the original trilogy. Nobody's going to care who's directing it. It's like we would have had 2 movies with these characters. We're ready for the trilogy, the final chapter of the trilogy. We want the story.
Right.
Whoever's directing it, fine. Somebody direct it, you know.
Sure.
I mean, name me the director of Return of the Jedi.
I know.
Yeah, Richard Marquand.
Okay.
Right. But nobody knows him. Okay. That's the thing is that, it didn't matter at that point.
Lawrence Kasdan did the second one.
That's right.
Empire Strikes Back.
Which, yes.
Is amazing.
The best one.
And he helped with the screenplay for Force Awakens,
He did.
right? Okay.
Yeah. My wife and I have actually watched all 6 in the last week and a half.
Wow.
In order, because my wife actually loves episode 7 so much. She wanted to go back and watch all 6 because she never really paid attention to them.
Got you.
And it was interesting to watch her after watching all. We watched the prequels first. We watch them in order.
And, so not historical chronological order, but
in
you
the
did
right story order.
Okay.
And it was interesting because she made a really astute comment about episode 3.
Okay.
Which I told her, I said, hey, listen, as we were leading up to it, I'm like, listen, I kind of feel like episode 3 is the best of the trilogy. That's just me. And she got to the end.
The best of the prequels. Yeah, I remember you saying
she got to the end and she said, there were 3 moments in that film that I should have been crying, and I wasn't. And she said, why is that? I'm like, it's probably the directing and the acting. I said, honestly, yeah, I know which moments you're talking about. There are moments that should have been, beat you down emotionally, and they just didn't connect. Mm-hmm. So where she was bawling through several parts of episode 7, So I think that just tells you a lot about, you got to connect with your audience emotionally. And I just don't think George Lucas knows how to do that.
Right.
I watched episode 6 again. It's the first time I've seen that one in quite a while. It is the poorest directed of the original trilogy for sure.
Okay.
And as I watched it, realizing it's George Lucas who was directing it, it's like, it's also the poorest acted of the 3 original trilogy, I believe, too.
Now, episode 4 or episode 6?
A New Hope.
Oh, okay.
A New Hope. I mean, I think why the original Star Wars was so enamored by everybody loves it so much is because we're introduced to some really great characters. Mm-hmm. It's a great premise. It's a great story. But I don't think the acting's great. I don't think the directing is great. And I really could see that after watching it in the scope of all these other films.
The timing, I think you can tell in Star Wars, Harrison Ford is going to be big.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't know, if you brought an alien down or something, like, watch this dude, and don't let him be like, oh yeah, he seems like he's going to, that kid's going to go places because he's given, the direction's not really there. The script's kind of but the dialogue and some of the lines that he has and the way he delivers them, he makes himself a star.
Yeah, he kind of got to show a little charisma and develop the character. Empire Strikes Back is where it all clicked. Sure. You've got a great writer, a great director, and you've got some excellent acting going on. I mean, it really is the best acted of all 6 films. It is the best directed of all 6 films. I mean, it just looks great. It's acted great. It's got the right dramatic beats, everything there. Return of the Jedi, a little drop down, not much though. It's still my personal favorite, just from a sentimentality standpoint.
Okay.
That's the one I saw the most in the theaters when it came out as a kid. I went to go see it 6 or 7 times, I think. So that's my personal favorite.
Sure.
But even watching it after Empire Strikes Back, it's Empire is definitely a better movie, no doubt about it.
Gotcha.
And Return of the Jedi has got enough groan-inducing moments to knock it down a notch on my list. But anyway, it's just so my answer to the question:
how do you feel about George Lucas coming back and directing?
Oh no directing. He does not need to touch a camera. He does not need to give any line of instruction to an actor.
So you would not sign this petition?
No, not at all. Do I feel like that maybe it would have been nice to have some of his story elements integrated and still see him as the godfather of the whole saga? Maybe. Because I'm with you. The prequels, I think if you boil it down to what happened in the prequels, the story's good.
Yeah.
It's just the way it was portrayed and told in the story just was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But the core story going on in those 3 movies is a good story. It's an interesting story to follow. I would have loved to have seen the prequels directed by somebody else. That would have been amazing to see those. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting that there's at least 8,000 or 9,000 people very, very angry that George Lucas is not directing films.
So are you okay with Colin Trevorrow doing episode 9?
Yeah,
or do you think another director should be?
I honestly don't even feel like you need to have top-level director for these films. I think it helps. But I think my concern is I think Rian Johnson, I've got a feeling, is going to set the bar pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
So my feeling is the 3rd film is going to be a letdown for everybody no matter what, just because I think you're matching Rian Johnson, who is...
I am so curious to see what he's going to directing, but he's writing it. What is he going to do?
That's why well, the fact is we have a completely different writer for each of the films so far. Well, no, Rian Johnson, I think, may be writing episode 9 as well.
I heard that if my memory serves, that he was writing episode 8 and 9, but he was only directing episode 8. So yeah, I think you're right. I think
so. There'll be a little bit of synergy, connective tissue between the three from a technical standpoint as well. No, I'm really excited about Rian Johnson. I could care less who directs episode 9. I mean, to me, if you're continuing the story that Rian Johnson's writing and this whole trilogy that J.J. Abrams kicked off, J.J. Abrams is kind of still having some producer role in the whole thing. I mean, it's going to work. I mean,
right. And
I could go and direct episode 9 and it would probably still be a really, really good film.
You'd be
that people
probably
would like.
Less expensive than Colin Trevorrow.
A little bit.
So
yeah, I could probably cut him a good deal. So.
Not only that, but I'm excited that Rian Johnson, after episode 8, is going to be a household name.
Yeah.
And then what is he going to do next? Because he's going to have, I'm assuming, probably pretty good clout, some money. Like, what is he going to get? We know what J.J. Abrams. We know what J.J. Abrams is going to do. Like, he's good, but we know the types of films he likes doing. What is?
The thing I realized, I guess it's kind of coming back to episode 7. Our only thing that we could really fault the film with, that you and I kind of pick it apart for, and I think it's a J.J. Abrams thing. J.J. Abrams knows how to direct a good movie.
Sure.
He knows how to make a movie look really good.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to get good performances from his actors.
Yep.
He's just not the most original guy in the world. And you look back at all of his film history, Mission Impossible 3, okay? Mm-hmm. Didn't do Mission Impossible 1.
Nope.
And even Mission Impossible was a takeoff of a TV series. He did the third one. He made it a really good movie. It's my favorite Mission Impossible movie of the 5 that they've done, but it's still a Mission Impossible movie, and it's not really that different from the other films. Super 8, I didn't care for the film. And it was basically borrowing elements from a whole bunch of Spielberg films.
Sure.
So, I mean, you take these films that he's actually written and directed, and they're not very original. And I think that's probably the argument I've got against episode 7 is that it just wasn't very original.
Sure.
You could still take the old characters and put them in a very unique, interesting situation. Instead, he put them in a very safe, comfortable situation. We as fans still love it. It's still a great movie.
Sure.
That's my one fault, is that I felt like it was just a little too safe and a little too relying on the old Star Wars to play fan service. But I think that's just JJ's thing. I hope Rian Johnson if that's the one thing I want from episode 8, is just let's be a little more daring. Let's be a little more inventive. Let's be a little more creative and not feel like we've got to do things like the original trilogy did. So anyway, all right. So that's our news items. We're good. Let's wrap that up.
Yeah.
We'll move on. Let's get our recommendations on the table here. My voice has got 5% left, so I can probably squeeze this out. So, Chris, do you have a recommendation for our audience of something they can see, find, rent, stream, whatever vehicle it may be?
Yes. Okay. My recommendation is going to be Sicario.
Oh.
And it's a 2015 film. It's the latest film from director Denis Villeneuve.
You got that. I think you got that right.
Maybe. But he has been discussed, the director's work has been discussed previously on the show. He did Enemy, which you and I both liked. And then before that, he did Prisoners. Which we also reviewed on the show.
Right. I was a big fan of Prisoners. I was okay with Enemy.
I liked Enemy a lot. Prisoners I was okay with. It was a really tough subject matter about child abductions. But
both were done really well.
Both were done well. This guy, he's now going to make the list of directors that regardless of what he's doing, I'm going to see it.
Wow. For Sicario, really?
For Sicario, yeah. Sicario, I'll read you the brief. There again, thank you, IMDb. Brief plot synopsis. An idealistic FBI agent, played by Emily Blunt, is enlisted by a government task force to aid in the escalating war against drugs at the border area between the U.S. and Mexico. So it sounds like, it's like a traffic type movie.
Yeah.
It's nothing you haven't seen before, like the war on drugs and how things are bad. But just the reality-based nature of the movie, I tend to like those type of movies, and the characters played by Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin and Emily Blunt, all of them are really well written.
Good.
And the movie is intense from the very opening part of the movie all the way to the very end of the movie.
Wow.
It is stressful
Okay.
and kept me riveted, even though you feel like you've seen raiding drug lords and all this kind. You've seen this type of thing before. Just really well acted, really well plotted movie. I really liked it. So, wow. Sicario.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. When I first saw the film, the trailer, and heard about it, I had zero interest. I heard the director. I had a little more interest because of how much I liked his other 2 films. But I still just never got enough enthusiasm up to go see it. But it sounds like it's a good pick.
And this was not written by him. This was written by Taylor Sheridan. I am not sure if his other films were written by him or not, but what gives me hope is that he can take something like, a story that seems very, tried and true. It's like a drug war movie. He can take that and do something very original with it. So that gives me, it's like, what would a Star Wars movie directed by this dude look like? Who knows?
That's kind of our ongoing question now, is we're going to ask every good director we come across, what would a Star Wars movie directed by this guy be like? So.
Right. Actually, I don't think he's written the ones that we've mentioned. I don't think he wrote any of them. So he's a really good director that has a visual style that can take a story and kind of fit it into his visual wheelhouse or whatever, along with his cinematographers. But nice. So I recommend Sicario. It's available iTunes. I don't think it's streaming on Netflix.
Yeah, I don't think it is, but I think iTunes, Amazon, the kind of the typical places you can rent films for purchase. So great. My film, I know it's one you saw, and it's one that got a lot of buzz last year, maybe, but really didn't get any Oscar nominations, although it was batted around that it was a possibility. I finally had a chance.
Rio 2?
Yes, exactly. Okay. I hadn't seen the original, so I was afraid I was going to be lost with number 2, but no. It's one of those situations where the sequel is so much better than the original.
Right.
No, this was Nightcrawler, the Jake Gyllenhaal film by Dan Gilroy. I had not seen it. I caught up on it because it's on Netflix now and had a chance to watch it. And boy, I really loved this movie. I thought it was great. Okay. And I know I'm trying to put my finger what it is about it. It's probably one of the few performances Jake Gyllenhaal that I really was like impressed.
It's a very heightened performance.
Yes,
but I think it's a very good performance. But it's very like, I guess you could say it's a very showy performance. He's a very kind of showy character.
He's an odd character, and he has to play up a lot of odd qualities about himself.
Sure.
But I really, really appreciated this film. I just think. It explored a type of person, a type of job, a type of career move that was kind of foreign to me.
Sure.
This whole news gathering video service footage. I started my professional career doing videotaping. So I'm the camcorders they're using and all the kind of run and gun stuff. I kind of dug that. I kind of liked that the film was actually focusing on that element of a job.
Sure. News gathering,
yeah. It's just something you just don't really think a whole lot about when you're watching the news and there's footage of the wreck or the aftermath. You don't think to yourself, I wonder how they got that footage, and I wonder who else got that. Did somebody from the station get it, or did they use an outside source? None of that you think about, but yet this film did a great job of digging you under that underside. It's a dark movie. It's
not the most flattering of the news industry.
Oh, no, not at all. And it does not end on any kind of happy, cheery note. I mean, it could be a challenging movie for some people to watch.
Yeah.
But I thought what it has to say about the nature of media, maybe not news gathering specifically, but more media in general, was really impressive. And it was a heightened film. Yes, I feel like the dialogue, some of the scenes a little over the top, some of the dialogue a little heightened. But it was a fun movie to watch, and I just really, really had a good time with this one. Rene Russo, I'll say too, was really good as the station manager.
Yes, she was good.
Kind of the little game that she had to play with Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Louis Bloom, was.
Their scene in the Mexican restaurants.
Oh yeah,
awesome,
really good. So I really enjoyed the movie, and I loved the tension building ending that takes place at a coffee shop, I believe. Just the way they built that scene up around it and how it ended. It was really good. So Nightcrawler, it's a tough watch, but I think it's a really interesting, fun film. So
cool.
Yeah. So that's our show for today. Lots of good stuff. Hateful Eight, we're not big fans of. I'm not using the word hating, but we are saying that we're not liking it. Chris was pretty down on it. I was really close to where he was on it as well. Then we had the film Tangerine, which we both liked. Chris had a more positive view of it than I did, but I think we both can say safely it was a very, very positive, strong, independent film.
Yeah.
That did its work really well. Then we had our quick reviews, Sisters and Creed, both of us giving a thumbs up on. Chris, surprisingly so with Creed. Good to hear. Me with Sisters, not a perfect movie, but it is a lot of fun at the movie theater to go and have a good laugh. Then our picks, Nightcrawler, and you had the pick Sicario as well. Then a couple news items we threw out there about Star Wars directors, about What else did we talk about in the news?
Nolan's new film.
Oh, yeah, Christopher Nolan's new film. And then I said something else. Oh, Doctor Strange. Talking about that. Pretty good episode. Lots of stuff covered. My voice, I'm going to take it home and rest it now for the weekend. I don't have to say a whole lot the rest of the night, so that's good. Chris, if somebody wanted to connect with us, find out more about Footcandle or anything else, where should they go?
So you can drop us an email at info@themesh.tv. Let us know some movies that you want to hear us talk about. Let us know why we are wrong about Hateful Eight.
Yeah, I really would actually like to hear some people really arguing that with us.
Tell us what made it the film that everyone else is like raving about, that we have no idea what they saw. So drop us an email at info@themesh.tv. You can also go to the mesh.tv website as well and find back episodes of Footcandle Films. Alan mentioned that previously. All of our episodes are up there for your listening pleasure. You can also follow Alan and I on Letterboxd. That's letterboxd.com, where we review movies and just kind of keep an ongoing diary about what we're watching at the time.
And I'm pretty good about logging all my films in Letterboxd right now. So unfortunately, I'm not as verbose on the comments and reviews like I should be. But at least if you want to see what I'm seeing, Letterboxd is a great way to see that. And I do put the star ratings after we've recorded our reviews of the films on this podcast.
One thing I want to be sure to mention, it is 2016. We've started a new year. We wish you Happy New Year. We are also going to be having a Footcandle Film Festival in 2016 in September again.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
So we're not doing any ticketing information right now, but September 23rd through the 25th, we will be holding our second annual Footcandle Film Festival. And if you are a filmmaker and you're listening to this show and you would like to submit something, go to either footcandlefilmfestival.org. There's a link there.
Actually, it's .com.
Oops.
Footcandlefilmfestival.com.
It's footcandle.org, but footcandlefilmfestival.com.
Footcandlefilmfestival.com.
We like to give equal love to the endings of websites. So
don't go to footcandle.com.
Right. I think you'll find like a lighting website or something.
I mean, you can go there. I'm sure they've got some nice lights, but it's not going to be us.
It'll have nothing to do with us. Go to either one of those websites and find out about our festival.
Or just do the Google search, Footcandle Film Festival.
Yeah. And there'll be a way to submit a film, and we'd love to look at your work and possibly have it at our festival.
Absolutely. Footcandle Film Festival 2, Electric Boogaloo, coming this fall, September. Very exciting. Okay, so I guess that's it. We're going to wrap up the show. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Happy 2016. Be on the lookout for a best of and Oscar prediction show coming up in the near future, as well as our normal ongoing series as well. So stay tuned for the next episodes, and until then, take care.
See you in the ticket line.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.